Welcome to AnthroDish, the show about food, culture, and identity. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah Dugnan. Welcome to season 10. 10 feels really big to me. 10 feels like something significant. It feels very firm and solid. It's found its footing in some ways. 10 feels like a particularly good something, especially when I consider how I've been doing this podcast since 2018. I started as a graduate student with a lot of uncertainties about myself, my confidence, and the anthropological world at large. And when I think about many of the shows that I aired alongside back in those early days, many of those have wrapped or moved into new domains. And there's such a rapid shift in how we think about podcasts. I mean, there's, Joe Rogan, the brosphere, the tech bros, the podcast bros, the meat bros. It's a lot of masculine energy at this point. How we watch them has also changed. And I know last year in season 9, I introduced video and added a soft launch of my YouTube channel. This year, to no surprise, I'm still doing video on YouTube, so you can watch if you'd like to. And I'm still not putting too much pressure on myself to make the YouTube channel a complicated effort. Maybe one day I'll have enough ducks in a row to make that work a bit more, but as of right now, this feels like enough. Being enough feels like a central theme in my own work and understandings this year, and in many ways, there's this increased algorithmic pressure that I think we're all facing to do more and to be more and to be constant. And I find it very grating how much changes on a month-to-month basis of what we're supposed to do on social media to begin with. I have started to get more paralysis about what do I post and when do I post and how do I post. I feel like I'm not doing enough to ensure that I have a place on my feed. And this was particularly bad 2 years ago when my AnthroDish Instagram account almost got shut down because I was posting pro-Palestinian content. So in many ways, it feels like you need to separate out what you're doing in many different contexts. Because of this and because of social media shifting so rapidly, it feels like you need to have eggs in many different baskets. Because of this feeling, I revolted and I shifted my focus this year to nurturing more in-person events, to slower forms of collaboration, and to rooting down into casting a deep net into food and podcasting and writing communities that I've been lucky to be a part of over the last few years. This past September was quite busy in that regard. I got to speak at the Graduate Association of Food Studies on eating uncertainty, exploring why we have so many deep-seated anxieties about eating and cooking in North America, which was a very rich conversation, and the discussion that followed made me feel a particular type of optimism that we can still collaborate and communicate and work together when we feel very isolated in these issues sometimes. I also had the great pleasure to start a collective with other women food writers called Feminist Food Friends, which is brought to us through the wonderful Isabella Bonavera and Zoe Johnson of Feminist Food Journal. The heart of this collective is to foster what we're calling slow collaboration, which is a bit of a riff on the slow food movement, although without the Chez Panisse vibes. It's for food-minded people. It's looking to learn from each other in other ways that don't feed into this constant production culture that dominates our algorithms and our platforms and our mainstream media sources. The founding members of Feminist Food Friends include Isabella Bonavera, Zoe Johnson, Apurva Shripti, Margot Vieron, Devin K. Pope, Steph Marsden, and Claire Michaud. And me, also me. I'm in there too. We've orbited each other for a few years now, and most of us have worked together in some shape or form. All throughout it, we've all steadfastly resisted this pressure to try and pull ahead. And instead, we turn to seeking to amplify each other's work and accomplishments and working together to build each other up. Coming together within the container of Feminist Food Friends has been an attempt for all of us to deepen our sense of collaboration and to expand our circle of curiosity and care. So if you work within food or you're interested in the ways that food sharpens and expands our understandings of the world, this collective is for you as well. We are scheduling online workshops for every 2 months. We just had our first one in September, so the next one will probably be in November. Some of the events will include a panel on the politics and potentials of zine making, pasta dough therapy, and I'll be running a no bullshit nutrition class at some point. I'll be sure to share those on my podcast, but I would recommend looking to my newsletter for the latest updates on these events, which is sarahdougnan.substack.com. Throughout this year, I'm going to more events where I actually get to meet the people that I interview in real life, exploring food talks and new restaurants, and feeling like I'm really coming back to my old sense of self. This feels like a remarkable gift to me because I was in such a deep cocoon of grief about 2 years ago after losing my brother. And I really thought I'd never come out of it. And then there was postpartum, which was another exhausting and foggy time. My body, my heart, and my brain have been in a long and ongoing journey toward healing and finding some form of rest. And I'm not sure if you can hear it in my voice or you can maybe see it, but I feel like there's a spark lit within me again that hasn't been there for a while. So I'm using that as fuel to create and nurture the podcast in different ways than I would have before. Nothing really changes for you as a listener to AnthroDish, but it's more about how I'm practicing the work of podcasting, how I'm valuing it. I think particularly, and quite honestly, there's so much negative talk about podcasting, particularly in food writing spheres where I feel diminished. But I do know that these conversations matter to me, they matter to the people that I have them with, and they matter to the listeners. And so approaching that again with that value of that time and that ritual of conversation is so important to me. But the approach itself will be more to ensure that I'm still resting and I'm balancing the rest of life with podcasting. So I will still air episodes on Tuesdays. I'll take a holiday break for the last 2 weeks of December and the first week of January, and then we'll be back for more episodes in 2026. But I'm not going to be rushing how I do things within a certain time frame. It's 1 or 2 interviews a week, slowly, steadily, and without forcing myself to squeeze people in to appease PR gods. And I don't mean that to be insulting, but I do find it a very exhausting and not fruitful path to chase. In its place, I've set up conversations with people that I admire, in terms of their work relating to food and beverage, and there's some returning familiar faces that you'll be excited to hear more about, as well as some new guests that I'm sure you will connect with immediately as well. Because we're living in a time where fascism is a very dark and omnipotent force, I'm wanting the season to be a season where the emphasis is looking at what community is. And I know community is this word that has so many different meanings. It can be a faulted term. It can also be a really beneficial term. So I want to look at how can we be in community when we're not always aligned. And I'm not talking about violent disagreements or injustices to people's humanity. I mean, what are the sorts of relationships between a consumer and a farmer when there are differences in their perspectives? How can we have just transitions in food societies when producers and consumers aren't necessarily aligned? What needs to be flipped in our understandings of community in order for there to be safe and radical and imaginative spaces where better and more equitable futures can be planned? These are some of the many topics that we're going to be exploring starting next week with a conversation with the co-editors of the new book, Queers at the Table. So thank you so much for tuning in for 10 seasons. If you've been here since the start, if you're just joining now, I'm so glad that you're here. Be sure to catch the first interview next Tuesday on your favorite podcast listening platforms, or you can watch on YouTube as well at AnthroDish Podcast. You can also find all this at the website at anthrodish.com under episodes. For more AnthroDish, you can find all of it at anthrodish.com or on TikTok at AnthroDish or Instagram, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky. Pretty much everything else is AnthroDish Podcast. I'm everywhere, but I'm not posting as regularly as I used to. But please feel free to drop me a line and let me know what you think about the episodes, what you want to see from them. I always welcome conversation and reflections from what you've been learning on the show. Music composition was done by Lucas Wojcicki. AnthroDish is produced in partnership with the American Anthropological Association. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'm excited to see you back next week.